Hi everybody, I'm Steve Paikin and we are here in Newmarket, Ontario at the Upper Canada Mall to kick off Season 3 of a program we call TVO Today Live. Our subject this time, should snowbirds skip going to the warmer United States this winter? A year ago, nobody would have considered such a question, but today, of course, lots of people are. We are really grateful to be able to do this series on TVO, and we have to thank the generous support of the Wilson Foundation for doing so. Red Wilson, I know you're watching, and I want to thank you for the way that you have really wonderfully helped support the work that we do here in the interests of discussing democratic and civic engagement. So thanks so much, Red Wilson. And we are delighted to welcome two hearty souls who are going to engage on the issue of the day. And here they are. Laura Babcock is a former Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, now a current affairs commentator and host of The O Show. And Peter Shurman is here. He's a former Progressive Conservative member of the Ontario Legislature and a broadcaster whose nickname was and is and ever shall be the Shurmanator. That's him. Can I have a hand for these two, please, for coming up to be with us here today at the mall? I do want to say we are very anxious to hear from this audience as well, because you are not just here to be potted plants. You are going to participate as best you can in the discussion that we are about to have. So start thinking now about questions and or comments that you would like to contribute to our conversation today. And we're going to put you to work right away here. I'm going to do just a few questions off the top to get a sense of the room. And then I'm going to describe, because some people are listening to this on podcast and they won't see it, so I'm going to describe sort of how many hands are going up here. Question 1. We are mad at Donald Trump, and a good way to show our unhappiness with his awful behavior is for Canadian snowbirds not to go to the U.S. this winter. Who agrees with that sentiment? Hands up. Okay, I am looking at most of the hands up in the room, I think. Okay, let's try this again. Another show of hands. Canada is a cold country. Trump isn't going to care one way or another whether we go. We're only inconveniencing ourselves if we don't go. So it's okay to go. Hands up on that one, please. Wow, very, very few. This is a home game for you, Laura. Okay. Is there anybody in the room who is genuinely undecided on this issue? Can I see some hands on that? A small smattering of hands of people who are undecided. Okay, Peter, you've got an opportunity, it would seem, to convince some people to come your way. Couple of more questions here. How many people here either are or have been snowbirds in the past? You have gone south during the wintertime. I'm seeing some hands at the back. Oh, okay, lots of hands. I'm guessing here about half to 2/3 of the hands went up on that one. Let us continue, if you will, to establish a bit of baseline, and I'm going to get Stephen, stand up if you would, because I want to introduce you here. You are the president of Snowbird Advisor and Snowbird Advisor Insurance. Stephen Fine, thanks for coming up today. You live not too far from us at TVO, right?
Not far at all.
Okay, so thanks for coming up to Newmarket. Let's just do some basic understanding of what we're talking about today. Describe a typical snowbird, if there is such a thing.
Well, a typical snowbird, it depends who you're talking to. There are different definitions, but we would say someone who's typically retired, semi-retired, usually 55 plus, and will go away to warm weather destinations for between 1 and 6 months over the winter, usually beginning in October and coming back in April at some time over that period.
You tend to think Florida, Arizona. Is that basically it?
Not really, actually. Those are the two big ones. Florida's number 1, Arizona's number 2, but there are a number of other places in the U.S., and we've seen international destinations growing as well.
Can you determine yet, I know we're still a little while away from the time when people traditionally leave, can you determine yet whether people are either thinking about or actually boycotting going to the States this winter?
Well, it's a little early to tell right now. We're hearing sentiment on both sides from our members at this point. I think that we'll see some decline in U.S. travel this year among snowbirds, but I don't think it's going to be as drastic as some of the other travel numbers we're seeing where travel's down by 25 or 30%. We anticipate it'll be more in the potentially 10 to 15% range, but again, too early to tell. We won't really know until the end of the season.
And again, not meaning to put you on the spot here because maybe you don't have a number, but if 10 to 15% of snowbirds don't go, do you know what dollar figure that represents?
We don't have a dollar figure on that. You know, we're not really sure. We don't keep track of those kinds of numbers, but it would be significant. But keep in mind as well, you know, the majority of snowbirds traditionally go to the U.S. About 85 to 90% of snowbirds go to the U.S. traditionally. So if you see a drop of about 10%, you're still getting the vast majority of snowbirds going to the U.S. somewhere in the 70, 75, 80% range potentially.
Gotcha. Stephen, thanks for your help on this. I may come back to you later in the program if need be. Stephen Fine, everybody. Can I have a little hand for him? Thank you. Okay, back to you two. Let us establish our sides. Laura, you think it's okay to go to the States and be a snowbird this winter?
Not this winter, Steve.
Because?
3 main reasons, and I can elaborate on them as we go. The first is safety. It changes by the weekend. I see a lot of people nodding your heads in agreement. For the first time in its history, the United States is now on the Human Rights Watch because some things are going on in that country that are deeply disturbing. And given that the relationship between the current administration and Canada seems very volatile, we don't know every morning when we wake up what the sentiment will be towards Canadians. I think it's something that every snowbird and every Canadian should consider. The second thing is signal. I have a communications company called Power Group, and I always teach my clients, you got to send a clear signal through the noise. And we know there is so much noise going on coming out of the US, right? It takes over our lives. So the signal that Canada is trying to send is the same signal that I say to my kids if they're threatened. Right now, we're being threatened with our sovereignty and our economy, and I say to my kids, when a bully threatens you, you stand up early and often and always. You send a clear signal and you do not change that. So what signal does it send if 1 million snowbirds fly south and give billions in tourism? It interrupts the signal that Canada is trying to send. And the last thing, and the one I'm most passionate about, is sovereignty to our country in the sense of economic patriotism. That means that we have to put our economy first. It doesn't mean nationalism, where we block out other investment around the world. It doesn't mean closing our walls as a country, but it means prioritizing Canadian-built products. And millions of Canadians have made sacrifices, myself included. Can't go see my family in Cleveland in Florida. Can't do all the travel to the US that I love to do. I'm doing it. I'm trying not to buy US products out of a sense of solidarity with millions of Canadians, especially the ones who have lost their jobs in the auto sector. What would that say if I decide willingly, not because I have to go for some emergency, but willingly to travel and give my money to a country that is currently threatening and bullying us? I can't do it, not this year, and I hope all of the snowbirds give a long, hard thought to both their safety, the signal they're sending, and solidarity with the rest of Canada. Thank you.
Safety, signal, solidarity. Peter, we did mention it looked like it was going to be a bit of a home game for Laura here. You want to try making the opposite argument?
Oh, I don't even want to try. No, I do want to try. As a matter of fact, I have the unique experience of having been a snowbird myself for 6 or 7 years, and for a reason that had absolutely nothing to do with wanting to be in the sun, the birth of a grandson who was unexpected. 4 years ago, we sold in Florida and decided to weather the storm and stay in Canada and be in the cold. But the bottom line is, around the time we bought, my doctor said to me, you know, you're getting to be what we describe as elderly. That's older. You're not old, but you're not working regularly anymore. You don't want to. And I might tell you, I'm 3 weeks away from being 78 now. So the concept of getting out of the cold appeals to me. The concept of being with my social peers, most of whom are down there, also appeals to me. If I take a look at where I live, it happens to be a condo complex in North York where a lot of the people in the building are of similar age to me. In the summer, we see everybody because they're gathered around the pool. In the winter, they disappear. In fact, we've already seen some people take off, watch their cars go on the truck, or them get in if they want to drive, and they're going. The building empties out, and we don't see them for an entire season. So I agree with Laura when she says you have to make sure that you cut through the noise and get onto the signal. The noise, to me, is what everybody is saying about whether the United States is safe. Look, we went to Florida. 60% of people there have guns in their cars. Now they're an open carry state. At least you know who has one. But the bottom line is we knew where to go and we knew where not to go. We like the idea of wearing light clothing, staying in shorts year-round. That's our reason for wanting to go, and I don't think it has much to do with Donald Trump or the cost of money.
But just to be clear, you will go south this winter?
I would if I'm not a snowbird anymore, so I will go to Florida, but it'll be for 1 or 2 weeks. We'll stay with relatives. And that's another thing I should say. Snowbirds often locate in areas where they have many friends and relatives. South Florida is a place where we have many friends and relatives, and regardless of whether we were or weren't snowbirds, and regardless of whether there were a tiff going on between the United States and Canada, or whether the dollar is going at $1.40, we'd be there. So sometime in January or February, you'll find me wandering the town center on Glades Road in Boca Raton.
It's a little more than a tiff that's going on between Canada and the United States right now, though.
You could say that.
You could, well, I just did. I mean, and it, because it is more than a tiff.
It is, but the way I see it, I didn't get a vote. So I didn't vote for Trump, and I didn't vote against Trump. I voted for Carney, or I voted for Poilievre. It doesn't matter which one it was. I'm a Canadian. Canadians go to Florida, they go to Arizona, they go to California, and sometimes they decide to go further afield, which my wife and I have discussed doing as well this winter. If we can afford it and the time is there, I think the time will be there, maybe we'll go to Barbados, maybe we'll go to the Bahamas. But we're not boycotting the United States. We don't have a problem with the people of the United States. I believe our government has a problem with the government of the United States, and as these things tend to settle, we will settle at some point and in some way, and it'll be okay again.
Laura, could you speak to that angle? Because Peter makes a good point. Every American I've ever spoken to, online, in person, whatever, say, you know, we're kind of sorry about all this.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
that we Americans don't have a problem with you Canadians. It very much is a president of the United States and a prime minister of Canada thing. Does that make you bevel your edges a bit on this?
I love Americans. In fact, our second biggest audience for the O Show, even though we're a Canadian national pro-democracy podcast, are Americans. I hear from them all the time. And they're in solidarity with us. They're in solidarity with what we're doing. They hate what's happening. They hate the disruption. I used to run a Chamber of Commerce in Oakville. So much of my members' business was reliant on our biggest trading partner. This is devastating. This is not just a tiff. This is just not, you know, some tariffs on softwood lumber or supply chain issues around dairy. This is aggressive tariff setting, disrupting our trade agreement that we worked so hard on a number of years ago in the first Trump administration, and saying to Canadian businesses, you don't know if you're going to have access to our market, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know if we're going to be reliable for you. You could wake up in the morning and find out there's a 10% extra tariff across the board. So that's called a trade war. It's not a tiff. And the second thing is, I would love to visit my family in Cleveland like I do for St. Patrick's Day, or go down and see my family in Florida. I've worked in Texas. I love to go to the U.S. It's got nothing to do with gun open carry or closed, although I have a good Nashville story I can tell. But it's about the fact that right now the U.S. is in a destabilized position. And we'll probably talk later about democracy and the rest of it. But it is definitely not a stable nation the way we're used to. And so I think for Canadians, you can love your American friends and family, you can connect with them over Zoom, you can say to them, I sure hope that I'm going to be back there next year. But this winter, this is what my family does, we're going to Punta Cana. And we love going to Mexico like we did last winter. There are other places where snowbirds can spend their money, maybe meet some new friends before they go back to their communities they're so used to.
Okay, Peter, come on back.
Well, it's interesting that you use the word an unstable or destabilized place right now. I speak to the United States, I suppose, 3 or 4 times a week, because we have close enough people in the States that I want to do that, or they do. And I don't think they consider themselves unstable at all. Some of them like their president, some of them don't like their president, but none of them feel that they're in any danger. We're the ones who think it's unstable, and from our perspective, I suppose I could agree with that point of view. Having said that, I'm the one who has to decide, if I'm a snowbird, whether I want to be there or not, and whether that instability that I perceive is there is going to be injurious to me. I don't think it is.
Let's look around this audience. Has anybody got a point they want to make on this issue? Can I get somebody to wait over here? Sheldon, follow me if you would. Oh, hi. I know who you are. Go ahead. Introduce yourself to the gang.
How are you? John Taylor, I'm the mayor of Newmarket. And I think the message I want to share is oddly in between. Well, maybe that sounds like a politician, actually. My point is that I think every Canadian should be doing everything they can to not spend money in the U.S. economy. And that includes going south. The point I want to make, though, is there is a lot of things in this world right now that divide us. And so be thoughtful and kind to your neighbors. Don't judge them. Don't assume you know their whole story. There are unique circumstances why some people may need to travel to the United States, may want to travel to the United States. I encourage us all to explore every way to not do it, but at the same time, let's do everything we can to not be divided anymore, or as little as we can. Strong opinions, good intentions, but less division.
Well, that's what we do here. We have, strong, engaging interchange on the issues, but we're all being very civil with each other. Let me ask you this, though. We've had some discussion here about, if you have a chance to go somewhere for 2 weeks, that's different from I own a place in Arizona, and to have it sit there empty for the whole year is really difficult and a waste of money. How would you respond to that?
I think it's very hard. I mean, I think of people, and I've heard life experiences. I mean, if I'm going away for 2 weeks, or I wish a week, I'm not going to the United States because that's simply a vacation. Maybe now, what happens if my niece is getting married? Or what happens if, not for me, but you've got, it's like you said, somebody down the street from you, they just, couple years ago, invested in and bought their dream place. And are they to leave it sitting empty for years? I don't know, but maybe they could go a lot less. It's kind of like maybe reducing your carbon footprint. I'll eat a little less meat, and I'll try to do my part. So some people's circumstances will be a little different. I think we should all do everything we can to send a strong message, to impact with a strong message. But let's be a little bit patient that we don't know our neighbor's full story.
Fair enough. Your Worship, thank you. And thanks for having us here today. This is great. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else want in? Laura, I think I want you to speak to this issue of there's a big difference between going somewhere for 2 weeks and having a place that you might have gone to for 4 months that you've put your life savings into and has a real special place in your heart. How do you deal with that conundrum?
It's rough. It's a sacrifice. And to my colleague's point, he has community down there that he goes to visit. I have Snowbirds in my family who moved from their Texas location to Mexico now. And they're loving the new cultural experience, but they had to leave behind a community they were with for a number of years that they looked forward to going and seeing. But I think in the long course of things, we are in an unprecedented moment. We haven't had threats to Canada's sovereignty by America in about 200 years or so. This is something that we have to take seriously. It's not just about necessarily the safety of your particular community enclave, which you talk to Americans all the time. I have friends from America. They feel okay where they are, but they don't know exactly how it's going to remain. And I don't know exactly how Americans are going to continue to feel about Canada as the rhetoric escalates or as things change. We just don't know. So when I say instability, I don't mean permanently terrible, don't go to the US, because I want to get back there. I love it. I'm bitter that I couldn't go on my holidays this year. However, we don't know. And until we feel a sense of, okay, this is okay for me to go back, I think we should give it serious thought, like the mayor said. Also, though, it's a sacrifice, right? Think of the sacrifice of the auto workers. Think of the sacrifices of small businesses who have lost major market share in the US. There are people sacrificing all the time. And if so, subleasing or not being able to use your rental property, not being able to see your friends for a year is the sacrifice that Snowbirds have to do. I think you have to think strongly about that. It sucks, if I can say that, Steve, but it is how it is right now. So let's be together as Canadians. Let's not divide amongst ourselves domestically or otherwise, and let's continue to send a strong, clear signal, even if sometimes it's scary and we're worried about what it's going to turn into. We can't be bullied, and we can't back down.
I want to suss out Peter's position a little more on this, which is to say, certainly when you were in politics, you had your ear to the ground very intensely to know what your constituents believed about something. I know you are watching now with interest as from time to time Canadians boo the Star-Spangled Banner when they hear it at a sporting event. Although interestingly, we didn't hear any of that in the first 2 games of the World Series, we noticed. That was of interest. Is there a part of you that feels just the slightest bit it would be disloyal somehow to go down to the States right now?
There's a part of me that feels pissed off that we got into this situation. But we didn't put ourselves in this situation. It just happened. If we were having a debate about Trump, which would go hours and is not what this is about, we could talk about the fact that the Americans I speak to who support Trump, and I speak to a lot of those people, say, look, we're happy. He said he was going to do these things. There are things that needed to be done. We support what he's doing. That's what we elected him to do. I'm not taking that position, but they are, which is why Americans, for the most part, feel safe. On the other hand, I've been on recently a cruise ship where the first people we met, the first morning that we woke up, happened to be from the left coast, as they call it, and we introduced ourselves, they introduced themselves. We both talked about where we came from, which is the first words that come out of your mouth when you meet people who are strangers on a vacation. And we're the Shurmans from Toronto. We're the whoever they were from Portland, Oregon. You're from Toronto? We're so sorry. Okay, so I appreciated that, but I said, you don't have to be sorry. I want to bring it back to a conversation that is less politically pointed. So I gave you the qualified yes. Of course, my ear to the ground tells me, yeah, I'm not happy with the situation. Having said that, I have to make do with it. And when I mentioned that I am in the category that's described by my physician charitably as elderly, I don't know how many more times I'm going to see my 85-year-old brother-in-law or my 75-year-old sister-in-law.
Who live where?
In Boca Raton, permanently. They come up here, we go down there for family events. So I'll tell you two stories about that. One is, maybe it's 4 more times in our lives, and maybe if I don't go this year, it's 3. So I have to keep that in mind. Second thing, we had a family event in July, and more than just those aging in-laws came. One of the daughters, my niece, came. She's in her early 40s. She has 3 kids, very well educated, very smart, and by the way, a dual citizen born in Canada. And she said, I said to her, you know, a lot of Canadians won't go to the States these days. And she said, and there are a lot of Americans who won't go to Canada, and I'm one of them. And I'm here because this is a family event. And I said, why wouldn't you go to Canada? She said, because it's a nasty little country that just wants to snub us. So there's the other side.
Can I ask you about Ohio? I mean, isn't there a part of you that feels, I shouldn't be giving Trump the victory by not going to Ohio? Why am I depriving myself of seeing family I love?
Do you know, I haven't brought up the T word yet. You have a couple of times, but I'm happy.
Is that tariffs or trade?
That would be Trump.
Trump, the third one.
But I'm happy to talk Trump all day, as my podcast would indicate. Listen, I have family in Ohio. You know what they did this summer? They got in a couple of vans and came up to our house. And the entire time, every time, we had a lot of people there. Every time I walked by the picnic table, they said, Laura, 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 we're so sorry about what's happening. What do you think we should do? We're in Ohio. And I'm like, you know what? Just keep doing what you're doing, right? They care about us. They had no problem coming to Canada. I also want to say, though, if as Snowbirds you decide to, you know, try something else, like Mexico or the Dominican Republic, I've been to both those places since all this madness started. And every time they say, you know, where are you from? And people go, Canada. Applause from the Americans there, from the Mexicans, from the people in the Dominican, from the people in Europe who are there. They absolutely see Canada as leading the charge for democracy, for independence, for the rule of law, for fairness. They don't see us as a nasty little country. They see us as leading the tip of the spear against what seems to be very unfair global trade practices. And I got to tell you, it feels really good to have people from around the world clap for you, talk to you, and say, keep it going, Canada. The world is watching.
Let me go to... You get applause every time you say something. That's very fun. That must be nice.
It's all truth.
Can I just get a sense of the audience here? Donald Trump became the president in January. Who here has tried to go to the United States since Trump became president? Hands up. Okay, very few hands going up right now. Next question. Anybody have trouble getting over the border? Anybody have sort of more than usual difficulty getting over the border? A security officer who maybe... No? I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking. Nobody had any difficulty at all. Oh, just a second here. Hang on. I see one hand in the back. Sir, would you mind standing for a second? I'd love to hear the story. You yelled out your son.
Yes.
What happened?
He and his family were going to Pittsburgh because the Pittsburgh Pirates organization were hosting a fun event for young ball players. Our grandson is a 10-year-old, plays AAA ball. He got to Buffalo, and he's with a major bank.
And they were driving down, I assume.
They were driving, and the security guard or the customs guy was totally rude to him, like so rude. Adam said, if I wasn't going to New York twice a month, I'd have punched the son of a bitch right in the face.
Can you say that on I guess you just did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, if our manager of the Blue Jays can say,
What a little potty mouth he has these days, isn't it? Although it's kind of nice to see. Okay, so did this affect or change your view of what's going on right now?
well, we have never had a problem because we've gone for years to Amelia Island and we have a wonderful experience. It's just you cross I-95 from Georgia into Florida. It's the first two exits, and we met some great Americans a number of years ago who introduced us, and we have many close, cherished American friends there. But it's getting there.
So the border situation that your son and grandson, is that who it was, that they experienced, has it turned them off the United States?
Oh, it left them in a very sour mood. Yeah. It depends where you go. We always crossed at Lewiston, and the folks at Lewiston are, for the most part, very delightful customs people.
What are your plans over the next several months?
Well, we are not going. We went for years, and due to circumstances beyond our control, nothing to do with politics, we were only able to go for a month this year. And we just decided, we have Nexus cards. We've been fingerprinted. We've had extensive interviews to get those cards. And Mr. T says, screw the cards. You're going to register again. So, and we're aliens.
You're aliens? What do you mean?
Well, he considers us aliens.
Oh, I see. Yes, yes.
I've
okay.
got 3 cousins. They're all Americans. So I've been to the U.S. many times. I've got a good view. I feel very good about them. What they're going through now is, they're a dangerous country.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. Much appreciated. I want to go to Stephen. Can I get you again here? Stephen Fine is our Snowbird expert here. Can you tell me, first of all, because a lot of what I hear about this is anecdotal, and you will know the actual facts. And we like to deal with empirically provable facts. I'm hearing that there's a lot more nastiness trying to cross the border these days, including fingerprinting and a kind of a, you know, the third degree of questioning that you never would have had before Trump became president. True or false?
It's a little bit of both. Fingerprinting is not required when you go over the border now. We've heard of some incidents happening over the last week or so where some individuals have been required to go through biometrics when they're crossing the land border into the U.S. So that would mean getting your photograph taken, that would mean fingerprinting. Now, this is not the official policy. Not everybody who goes over the border needs to be fingerprinted. Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of inconsistency at the border right now. It's primarily, I don't want to go into all the different rules because we could spend the next hour talking about it. We have some information about that on our website. We try to keep people updated. It's changing regularly, but most individuals will just go across the border as they normally would have in the past and then register online with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services online. There's no fee to do that. There are no biometric requirements, no fingerprinting required. Now, some Canadians are asking for what's called an I-94 form at the border, and if you ask for that, then you do need to go through biometrics.
What is that, a 994?
It's a record of entry into the U.S., and usually you don't need it at the border or at the land border. Historically, you haven't, or it's been recorded automatically. But in most cases, you're not issued one when you go to the U.S. You wouldn't even know you were issued one in the past. But now if you go down and you ask for one, then you will have to pay a fee for that. You will go through biometrics. If you don't ask for it, in most cases, you will just go through the border, and then you can register once you're on the other side if you're staying for 30 days or more. If you're not staying for 30 days or more, you don't need to register at all. What's happened in the last week or so is there have been some reported incidents of Canadians where the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol officers have required them to get an I-94 at the border and go through biometrics. So that's where there's some confusion right now. So,
And that requirement should not be in place.
it should not be in place. The CBP officers should not be requiring Canadians to obtain an I-94.
So why are they?
We're trying to figure that out as well. There is some confusion, but in most cases that is not happening and that is not the official policy, and we are working through to get statements from official sources so that we can share that. But what snowbirds need to know right now, if they're going down for 30 days or more and they're driving to the US, is be prepared to register in a fashion which you may not have anticipated having to register in before. So be open, go along with the CBP officer's recommendation, whatever it may be. Don't ask for an I-94. They may require you to get one, but in most cases you won't have to. But what we have not heard is people being rejected at the border. People get through, you may just have to register in a way that you hadn't anticipated before.
Okay, Stephen, thank you for that. I wonder, Laura, in an era of Trump, it is always possible to interpret that whatever stuff you run into at the border is because the president has suddenly put a new edict on Canadians and is trying to make our life difficult. I mean, it's also possible that it could just be what it always is, which is sometimes border officials get up on the wrong side of the bed and they're not having a good day and they take it out on you. I mean, that's fair to say, isn't it?
It's possible, but I have had a chance to travel a bit and worked in Europe and in Asia. And I can tell you, listening to you just now, talking about the biometrics scan and the rest of it, it's madness. This is not the America that we pop over and go shopping at the outlet malls, right? That we've been doing for years and years. And who knows, by the time, people are watching and listening to this, what it'll be then. The fact that you represent the organization of Snowbirds, or you do insurance for Snowbirds, and you're talking about not understanding the confusing practices that some are reporting back is the point. Right now, whether it's coming right from the office of Donald Trump because he woke up angry, or whether it is some overzealous border guard, or whether it's somebody who's tired and doesn't like how Canadians have been, not supporting their local stores across the border in the town they live in, who knows? But the point is, when I travel to other countries, that never crosses my mind. I mean, I've been to a few places where it's a little scary. They've got automatic weapons, or we had to carry our passports around, but just the description now tells me that not only do they not deserve our money if we can keep it from them because of the way they're bullying us and threatening our sovereignty and our economy and a lot of jobs in this country, but also it doesn't feel like a place that I would go unless I had to. And so people have to work, Stephen. People have to close up maybe their place they have down there if they decide they're not going back. People might have a family emergency. That's for all of us on our own conscience. And sometimes I buy stuff on Amazon and I go, ooh, I shouldn't have done that, right? We're not perfect, but we have to do everything we can to send a clear signal. We want to be safe. We want to make sure they get that we're not happy and we won't be bullied. And again, economic patriotism. Let's build up Canada for the future. Let's control, as our Prime Minister says, the things we can. We can't control Trump's edicts or a border guard, Stephen, but we can control our choices with our money.
You mentioned money, and I want to do what Woodward and Bernstein suggested, which is follow the money. Before we follow the money, I want to re-rack here for a second because I want to remind everybody that we are here in Newmarket, Ontario, and the mayor is here. How about that? John Taylor decided just to show up today. We're grateful for that. And we're in the Upper Canada Mall, which I got to say is absolutely, we're here on it's a Sunday afternoon. It is booming here today. I thought I was at Yorkdale for a second. It's so busy. Anyways, we're talking about whether or not Snowbird should go south this winter, or whether or not it would be better to stay here, as if that were a registry of our antipathy for what Donald Trump is doing to Canada right now. These are some of the issues we're exploring. Peter Shurman is here, Laura Babcock is here, and we're figuring this out as we go, and as I say, we want to follow the money now. Here's some numbers I want to put on the record. This is according to the U.S. Travel Association. Canadian travelers inject about $20 billion into the United States, and a lot of that, of course, is from snowbirds. However, the U.S. is a $30 trillion economy. And even in Florida, Canadians only make up 1.7 million of 75 million annual visitors. So, Peter, start with you, and then I'll get Laura to come in. If we do what Laura suggests, given these numbers, is anybody going to notice down there?
Yeah, the guy who runs the deli down the street from where I used to live in Boca Raton, because he services Canadians, and without Canadians, he winds up getting hurt. But that's who gets hurt. The overall economy of the United States does not get hurt. And I think that's what Trump knows very well, and that's why he can play the bully that he's playing. The bottom line here is, Laura said it, this is not the United States that we remember. It's not the United States that when I was a little kid had money that we could exchange at $1.10 Canadian rather than 60 cents Canadian. It's not the place that my parents took us for picnics on a Saturday so that my mother could go lingerie shopping or grocery shopping. It's not the place that just a few years ago when I lived in Niagara-on-the-Lake, we could go and do our grocery shopping across in Buffalo and get products that we couldn't get here. It's not that. It's something different. The only constant in the world is change. When it comes to things, for example, like biometrics, which you were just talking about, biometrics are a fact of life if you go into Schengen Europe, Schengen being the 30 countries or so of the EU. When you enter one, you've entered them all. You don't have to go into each one with a passport. So you go and you land at Paris-Orly, you do what you have to do, which includes a fingerprint, by the way, and a photograph, which is what the Americans are asking for, probably something that in the not-too-distant future we will be asking for, and that way they have it. The world changes all the time. Why? Because airplanes take people anywhere they want to go and deposit them there. And we're looking at a crisis that was created in the past that Trump thinks he's solving in a way that a lot of us don't approve of, but he is attacking it, however we view it. And that's as a result of people landing where they shouldn't have been without having the kind of interview we're talking about. So I don't have any particular objections to that. Speaking of which, when I lived in Niagara-on-the-Lake, I often encountered that guy who got up on the wrong side of the bed, and this is long before there was a Trump. And if you answered a question wrong, he'd say, I asked the questions here. Whereas my most recent trip was through Pearson. I presented my Nexus card to a machine. When they called Shurman, we walked through a kiosk, and the guy said, Mr. Shurman, have a nice trip. So it depends on who you encounter. That's it.
I want to put those numbers to you again, though, Laura. $20 billion annually from us to them in a $30 trillion economy. Even if every single person here boycotted, is it a pimple on the back of an elephant?
I never mentioned the economic argument in my top three. If you recall, I talked about safety, signal, and solidarity. And that's for a good reason, because we are a drop in their bucket, but they are an entire waterfall to our economy, right? So what signal do we send if we say, you know what, even though it's only $20 billion, maybe that's $20 billion, let's talk about the impact on Canada's economy if you travel this country, if you check out places you've never gotten to, if you pump those dollars back into Canadian stores, change up your purchasing habits, find local farms for your food, stay away from the big American discount stores, find Canadian ones. So the money, when it's on us, is a big freaking deal in this. But I want to talk about something that we haven't touched on enough in my mind, and I was honest off the top. I said it's the one I'm most passionate about. And that is, they're not just threatening our country with a trade war. We've been through trade wars. We understand that. We had a hard renegotiation with Trump Point 1. What this is a constant threat to our sovereignty, and it is not just Trump trolling us. Trust me, I'm probably on social media more than everyone here today. I know a good troll when I see one. That's not what this is. You know, Manifest Destiny as a doctrine goes way back, talking about how Canada is a natural part of the United States. The Monroe Doctrine, way back, talks about how the Western Hemisphere is the sphere of influence of the United States, right? This is not a new concept, but what Donald Trump is very good at is normalizing the outrageous, saying it over and over in a joking, lighthearted way until it becomes normalized with a generation of Americans who see our minerals and see our access to the northern gateway, which is hugely valuable now, as being theirs. And we have to stand up now for our children. I got teenagers, they're here. And for our grandchildren, and say, in this moment when our sovereignty was being threatened, we sure as hell weren't going to make it easier for them to take our country.
Okay, let me do, again with applause, again. Peter mentioned he's got a connection with Florida. You're getting, were those the kids applauding for you? I don't know. How many people here have been to Florida? Hands up. Okay, for those listening on podcast, pretty much every hand in the room went up. Canadians love going to Florida, whether it's for spring training for the Blue Jays or whatever. Canadians spend a lot of time there. I got some more numbers I want to share. This is, how many people have been to Orlando specifically? Hands up. Again, probably 80% of the hands went up here. This is according to Visit Orlando. This is the Tourism Bureau for Central Florida. By everybody going to Orlando or Florida, you are reducing the local tax burden by $7,474 per household in the Orlando region alone. If you broaden it out to Orange County, a bigger area, the tax burden is reduced by more than $10,000 per household. The governor of Florida says, quote, "I want Canadian tourists and Brazilian tourists subsidizing the state and making it so Florida residents pay less taxes." He should have said fewer taxes, but Mr. DeSantis isn't great on the grammar there, so that's okay. All right, we clearly, Peter, are, you know, as you look at 20 billion in a 30 trillion economy, that's not all that much.
I understand why the governor is saying what he's saying. Having said that, we're assuming that we're all going to stop going. And when we all stop going, those numbers that you quoted will disappear, and the burden on those particular cities will be extreme.
That's everybody, incidentally.
But we're
the
not all gonna
10,000 represents
disappear.
all tourists. No, we're not all going to disappear.
That's right. So I don't know what it's going to be as a result of people deciding they're going to boycott Disney World this year, which is Orlando or some of the other attractions that are in that area. It's temporary. They're going to have to suck it up the same way our prime minister has told us we're going to have to make sacrifices. That's just the way it is. And it's the nature of something that changes. We're in change. Laura brought up the issue of Trump being a factor, and of course he is, in this change and changing things in a dramatic way. I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think he knows exactly what he wants to achieve. He talked for a while and teased us about a 51st state. They can't do a 51st state because their Congress would never pass it. We can't do a 51st state because we'd have to open up the 1982 Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So there's not going to be a 51st state. What he wants is a North American fortress, the same thing that Doug Ford often talks about. And he's going to get it in the end because we had it. And basically Trump says this all the time, we took it. We lived under the defense umbrella. We didn't say thank you, we just did. He doesn't want us to take a free ride anymore. You can like that or not like it, but it's a fact. So the change that he wants to evoke in all of this, he also wants a separate trade agreement with Mexico from the one he has with Canada. Why? Because the trade components are different with each of these countries. So he's pushing towards that. I think he's going to get that too. And in the end, if we were to project out towards the end of Trump's presidency, don't all applaud, 3 years, we would
Might
probably...
not be 3 years, so we'll see.
Exactly.
3 years, and then we'll get JD. Okay, but the bottom line is he's 3 years away from going away. I think he's going to achieve a lot of these things in 3 years. We might just find that some of them are positive.
I want to ask you just how far, I mean, your view on this is crystal clear, but I wonder, and this is a program that you're on today, which sort of celebrates being able to strongly disagree without being disagreeable. Would you put loyalty tests on this? As in, if I found that a friend of mine was going to the United States, I might stop speaking to that friend. Would you do that?
Never. Because we didn't pick this fight. Why fight with each other about it, right? I mean, how does that help us to be mad at each other for not passing some purity test? I am against purity tests in everything, Stephen. I think humans are much more nuanced. It's more about being strategic. I'm a strategist by work. And what is the strategic thing to do? It is to sacrifice where we can, to send a clear signal to this government that even though my colleague here thinks it's inevitable that Trump's going to get some of his ends, I don't believe in inevitability. I believe in strategy. And when it's said that it can't be a 51st state, I say, well, that's not if we use the norms. But to your point, change happens. And we're seeing change right now in the U.S. and how they're operating. Congress hasn't really done much of its job, and neither has the third branch, the judiciary. Are they going to prevent another Trump presidency? Apparently, the plan is in place to find a way to keep him there. So I love the idea of everything flipping in the midterms. I love the idea of Trump leaving after 2 terms, as one should in the US. I love the idea of this all being a big joke. But until I'm seeing evidence that it is in fact a joke, I am not going to sit here and be blasé. I'm going to fight for my country every damn day.
What is it? I want to dig down just a little deeper and see if there is some more nuance in this audience. Most of you, the vast majority of you, when I asked the question off the top, would you go to the United States right now, all said no. Let me refine the question a little bit more. What about California? What about New York? What about Massachusetts? These are blue states. These are not states that voted for Trump. Would that make you change your mind? How many people here would think, I don't want to go to Florida, I don't want to go to Arizona, I don't want to go to the Midwest, I won't go to the Deep South, but the blue states, that's okay. Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, very few. So this is a pretty hardline audience, right? I'm seeing heads nodding. This is a pretty hardline audience. What about it? Yeah, okay. 1 and 2.
When Gavin Newsom, who I deeply admire how he has stepped up, exactly, Canadians are cheering for the California governor here. When he put out a video saying, come on, Canada, we're California, you love us, we love you, right? I said, you know, with all due respect, and I love California, been there many times, this is not the message, Gavin. You know, we support your state, but we need to be in solidarity against the unfair trade practices coming from that Trump government. It is not about that. And I have to say, Stephen, in anticipation that maybe things would go this way, I didn't anticipate, honestly, some of the violence we're seeing with the ICE raids and stuff. I couldn't imagine that. But my daughter, I was going to take her to New York City, my favorite place on earth, maybe, for her 16th birthday. I took her at 14 the month before the election, just in case I wasn't going to be able to take her for a few years. And I didn't want her to miss America at its best. When you stand in Times Square on a beautiful night, on a Saturday night, and you feel the energy of the world, the diversity, I wanted her to experience the best of America.
Let me understand this. When did she turn 16?
In a year and a half. I took her early. I took her at 14, right before the election, because I said, just in case. I don't want you to miss America when it is still a shining city on a hill at its zenith. And it breaks my heart, but I'm so glad I did.
You know who called it a shining city on a hill?
Reagan, yes.
A Republican
He's in the news
president.
again, yes. He doesn't like tariffs, by the way, in case anyone's unclear on the history record.
I think the Ontario government just spent $75 million reminding us that Ronald Reagan didn't like tariffs.
A little bit. And then we heard it was just AI and it was all fake. It wasn't. He never did, for the reasons that we're seeing and
Correct.
for the person in Boca Raton whose store is suffering, right? Tariffs are not good in the long term for American businesses.
Peter.
I just wanted to ask the audience a question, as you have. If I said that Steve had in his left-hand pocket a pair of tickets to one of the games in Los Angeles in the next couple of days, and he also had an airplane ticket in a hotel room, and one of you was going to get it, how many would accept it if it was awarded to you?
We should just explain, Peter, this will be aired.
He doesn't, by the way.
No, I don't. This will air in November, but we are sitting here recording this the night after the Blue Jays lost Game 2 to the LA Dodgers in the World Series. And some people have got their Blue Jay paraphernalia on here today. But yeah, there's a lot of discussion, I think, in the country right now among some who know that it actually might be cheaper to scalp some tickets for Toronto and go to Los Angeles and see them play there, because, of course, the Dodgers are in it all the time, and it's not the hot ticket there, it is here. So this is a real, what you've just raised. No, I don't have any tickets in my pocket, but it's a real thing.
But these are the kinds of things that we ask ourselves. You know, what is it that I'm prepared to break my word for?
Yeah.
I'm as strong for Canada as my colleague is, but I'm not going to jump up and down and rave about it. I've served in the Ontario legislature and raved about it for plenty of years, and I'm not telling you what a great guy I am. I'm simply saying there's a reality. The reality is I might want to see one of those games in Los Angeles. The reality is that when they ran the season opener, and I know this is airing on November the 22nd, when they ran the season opener in late October, they brought an incredible choir called the Voices of Fire and put together a show by Pharrell Williams, for those who don't know it.
Game 1 of the World Series.
Yeah, and I
One.
watched the most amazing renditions of both national anthems ever, and I didn't hear one boo. That's the way Americans and Canadians have always been. It's the way they are, and it's the way they all should be. And I dare say will be one day again.
May I just respond? I'm sure you weren't referencing me about jumping up and down and raving, because I have not been doing that today or ever. I do think, though, that we have to have some clarity about what it is that we are sacrificing. Would I love to go to a Jays game in LA? 100%. Would I love to go to Nashville and party? If you haven't, it is so much fun, and
Well,
I desperately miss it.
You did say you were going to promise us a Nashville story. What was that about?
This is actually several years ago when Biden was still in office, maybe the third year of Biden's term. And we had just arrived in Nashville. We were at this wonderful bar, and we were chatting up with one of the servers who was actually from New York in Nashville, and we got talking about the Biden administration and Trump. You know, I'm a political pundit, it's what I do. And after a few minutes, the manager came over and said, "You can't talk about that here." And we're like, "What?" And they said, "Well, this is," I believe at the time it was open carry, but Nashville's, fairly a democratic city, but around. And they said, "There are people here in this bar who are getting agitated just listening to Canadians talk about Biden." And we weren't even being particularly provocative. It was breakfast, right? But I said to the manager, I said, "What happened to America being the bastion of free speech? I mean, that has been the calling card of this country since the get. And we're sitting here, and we can't even have a polite breakfast conversation with the hospitality because it's too dangerous." And it was at that moment where I was like, wow. So this change we're talking about is not just about biometrics and technology. It's a chilling in that country of the very things that a lot of us take for granted in Canada. And until such time that America gets back to a place where you can have a conversation about the president without feeling intimidated, I won't be going. Whether it's a World Series ticket or the best concert in the world, it would have to take something severely urgent and personal to my family for me to step over that border.
Peter.
You're going to have, I understand that, and I've experienced the same kind of thing as you, so we have no quarrel on it. However, that's been going on for a very long time, and it goes on even here. We have a good friend located in Niagara-on-the-Lake, where, as I mentioned, we used to live. We were there recently, and she told us her neighbor no longer talks to her. She's an American by birth, has Canadian citizenship here by marriage, so she gets a vote in the States. And she mentioned that she voted for Trump to her neighbor, who had been her great bosom buddy. Gone, not in her life anymore. It divides people. It divides people at Thanksgiving tables. It divides people at Christmas. It divides people at all kinds of times when we should be together. And that's a very unfortunate thing. And it's equally unfortunate that you experienced what you experienced in Nashville. But I can tell you, having been in Florida before any of this nonsense, we got into discussions with Americans. Most Americans, regular everyday Americans, don't know a hell of a lot about Canada. But they sure were taking notice then, because what was happening? A thing called the convoy in Ottawa, and that news made the States. Now Canada makes the States every day because we're a victim every day. Yesterday, it was an additional 10%. Don't know what it'll be tomorrow.
I have a question or a comment. What's your name, ma'am?
Diane,
Hi, Diane. What did you want to say?
this topic is huge, and the comments are excellent, and I'm in a real conundrum. Will you pinch me? Am I really talking to Steve Paikin from TVO?
It's a very disappointing experience, isn't it?
But if I may take it on a personal level, just for a second, driving here, I received an email from my nephew that my brother, a doctor, just retired, and his wife, yesterday were moved into a senior's place. Unexpectedly had to happen. On a personal level, we've been going to Fort Myers for 10 years. We might never get another chance. Can that come into play? I support you both.
I think it has
but
to.
But it's our life, and we don't know. And that's
I've said that, right? It's a personal decision, and there are some personal emergencies
I
that
feel guilty.
Well, and that's a personal thing. I don't think we should shame each other. I don't think we should call out our friends who have to make those choices, because what a devastating thing you're concerned with, right? So if, as Canadians, we stay unified, and as Canadians, we support other Canadians' choices, it could be the tickets in your pocket for the Jays World Series game. Maybe there's a child of someone who has a life-threatening condition, and seeing the Jays would be everything for them, and of course take those tickets for that child. My point is this, is the bigger picture. It's not about perfection. It's about saying, are we doing our best? And as Canadians, it's not just for those auto workers and for those small businesses affected, it's also the rest of the world is watching us. Do you know how many times I get tweets from Greenland saying, we're with you, Canada? And we're like, we're with you. Right?
Diane, thank you for those comments. Yes, sir, what's your name?
Peter, thank you for your comments. I have traveled the world on business and listened to many people, and people are all the same. It's the politicians that usually screw things up. And I'll tell you one thing. We should stop the fear-mongering. This will all wash out within a year.
Within a year?
Within a year.
How can you be so sure?
It's just the way the politicians have to work with the people. They have to.
You know, the next question I have is, that's a 1992 World Series champion. That's the first year they won. You got it autographed. Who's?
Gavin White.
Oh, that's Devon White.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Devo started that triple play, didn't he? He did start. That was a triple play.
Well, all I remember is the one big one. But I want to thank you for your comments, for supporting our American friends. And believe me, every American that I meet, every time I go down there, they love us. We attend it's a show that's put on by all the residents of our place. And the first thing that we do at the beginning of that show is the national anthem of America and Canada. And everybody sings it.
Respectfully.
Respectfully.
As they should.
Steve, I
Do
like this
not,
guy.
please.
I like this guy. He's wearing the right shirt and he's saying the right things. In all seriousness, sir,
Thanks,
what it comes down to is there's no argument here. Laura and I met today for the first time. We're aware of each other, but we met for the first time. We shook hands. I would like to say we became new friends. We listened to each other. I don't disagree with anything she said. I hope she doesn't disagree with anything I've said. It's just a matter of opinion. And the opinion that you've just expressed kind of summarizes it. We're going through a tough period. We are, and nobody can argue with that. And there's going to be a point where we stop going through that tough period. And it's going to be exactly what you said. Politicians talking to politicians, God help us, but that's the way it works, that resolves this, and it will be resolved. We have a 9,000-kilometer border. What choice do we have? We will resolve it.
We have the largest undefended border in the world, so that's a concern. But to your point, if what you say is true, this will all be fixed in a year. I will sleep better tonight than I have in 10 months, sir. And it could be, my perspective is based on the fact that as a living, I follow American politics very closely. And I can tell you that if this was politics as normal, I would be in agreement with both of you. Let them talk to each other, work it out. This is all just gamesmanship. That isn't what it looks like, and that isn't what we're hearing from America. I hope it's resolved. I hope conversation does it, but that's not how it looks. So I'm going to hold what you said as a positive, optimistic potential in my back of my mind, and I'm going to act in every way I can to help my country get through this as quickly and as safely as humanly possible. But it is not just a matter of opinion. I'm not up here just opining because it's fun. I am up here warning our country that we need to do everything we can to protect our sovereignty and our economy, and I will not have it relativized. It's not relative, it's serious for me, and I want to make sure that's clear.
Okay. Back here. Yes, ma'am. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Maureen. And Laura, you actually stole my thunder.
Sorry.
But you're on the panel and I'm not, so thank you very much. I'm not a snowbird yet. And hopefully one day maybe I will be, whether it's to the US or to somewhere else. I'm not at that stage right now, but I wanted to come here because I know what my opinions are, I know where my beliefs, my values are, but I wanted to hear the other perspective. And I think we're aligned. I might not be where you are right now, but I can
Where are you?
certainly- My age?
No. I mean, on this, you said you're not quite where Laura is. What's your
I'm
view
not
on
at the
this?
Snowbird level. I'm still, I'm still actively engaged.
But do you think people should go down?
Not right now.
So you're with Laura in that respect.
Yeah, and I think I am with 80+% of this audience as well. But I think there's nuances, and I think there are people here that, might not be in the situation that I'm at and might say, you know what, I might not get down there ever again. This may be my only chance. That's why I'm not there yet. But where I am is I am not willfully ignorant or blissfully ignorant, whatever. I'm not putting my head in the sand. So if today we think that this is not normal, this is not normalized, although the US regime is trying to normalize it for us, this is not normal. So while we're here, I'm going to make some decisions right now to protect myself, protect my own country. And there may be hardships, there may be sacrifices, but I'm willing to make them. If I was a little bit older than what I am right now, I would have a different perspective, and I would say absolutely. You may not have the same opportunities that I might have in the next 20, 30 years. But right now, this is where we're at. Now, hopefully a year from now, it will pass. I'm not feeling that right now. I love the optimism of these people because I'm a little bit more pragmatic. And I'm just going to live in the world right now until that changes. I have to do what I need to do to protect myself and to protect my country.
Maureen, thanks for those comments. Much appreciated. We're glad you came today.
I didn't take your thunder. That was great.
Yes, sir. Please stand if you would.
Hi, Dave. Good to meet you.
Hi, Dave.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable. No, I'm getting greatly uncomfortable with some of the minimizing the impact of what the American threat actually is, and saying, well, we're going to get along well with the American people, and that's going to heal it all over. I don't think the situation now, the attitude from the United States is any different than it always has been. As William Lyon Mackenzie King.
You don't think the situation now is any different than it's always been?
No, this has been the goal all along, is to assimilate. William Lyon Mackenzie King, after the Yalta Conference, warned Canadians that our biggest threat is still from the United States, who have never given up on their goal of assimilating Canada. And I think that's been the perpetual thrust. Perhaps the current presidency there has given more license to people to be able to express it and act on it, and certainly the policies, the economic policies, the trade policies are pushing that, as Trump himself has said. He wants to conquer Canada economically.
So do you go down to the States normally in the winter?
No.
And you're not going this year, are you?
No, for sure not this winter. We've gone down occasionally to visit friends, to see family. We've had friends in Orlando, or family in Orlando we used to visit. We're not doing that anymore.
Not this time.
We can't. And that's the concept that Americans are really good to get along with. Well, we still know over half the people there support these current policies. And when we say, well, we're not feeling any of the threat, any of the violence, any of the repercussions of ICE, I notice all of us saying that are white.
Okay. Dave, thank you for that contribution. Okay. We are in the home stretch here. Let me just see here. Couple of things before we finish. Okay, you're on a show here called TVO Today Live. And we do this basically once a month during the course of the year. And essentially, at the end of the day, it's a show about democratic engagement, which you're all doing by being here today. So I want to just ask a few questions as we wrap things up I want to see how many people here have changed their minds. Can I see the people who were undecided at the beginning? Put your hands up, those of you who are undecided at the beginning. There were a very few of you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, very few. How many of you, having heard this discussion, are now with Peter Shurman and you agree with his side of the debate? Hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6, 7. All right. How many of you undecideds are now with Laura Babcock? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, you guys both sort of persuaded almost equally the undecideds here today.
We have a little bit of sway.
Yeah,
Very
not
little
bad.
bit.
Not bad, not bad. Do you believe this moment? How many people believe this issue and this moment is adding to the polarization between our two countries? Hands up. Hands down. How many people say, kind of what Dave said, it's always been this bad and this is no worse than ever? 1. Okay, that's gone overwhelmingly one way. All right. All right, where are we going to finish here? Let's do one last, final show of hands here. Should snowbirds skip going to the United States this year? You've heard an hour of debate. Who says yes, they should skip? Hands up. Hands down. Who says no, it's okay to go? Hands up. Hands down. What's your sense about how the room has moved in the last hour? Anybody got a view on that?
I don't think it's moved that much. I think, generally speaking, when you asked the question at the outset, it looked about like that, and it frankly was the way I expected it to be. Look, if we read the popular press and we take the statistics that we're seeing, 80% of Canadians detest Trump and are avoiding the United States because of it. So if I look at an audience like this, I should see that reflected, and I do.
And you know what, I agree. It was going to be the way it is when people walked in, because we have strong feelings about this, right? We have informed opinions about this. We have experienced it. We've seen the job losses in the auto sector. We've seen the headlines. We've felt the pain. For 10 months, has it not been difficult to be a Canadian, feeling for the first time that our sovereignty is under threat? It's been 200 years, right? The Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the last time that this manifest destiny has been put to action. There have been some little things in between, but nothing as overt as right now. And it's coming directly from the most powerful office in the world. It has been stressful. So I think everyone coming in here, Steve, was feeling a certain level of commitment to the issue. What I think is important, though, is going forward. Not everybody is as engaged on a beautiful Sunday afternoon as you are with their democracy. And if there's one thing that I can try to leave this audience with, is that you need to talk about it. Silence doesn't make us safer as a country. You need to talk to your American friends. You need to talk to your friends who don't follow politics. You need to say to them, are you aware of what's happening and the consequences to our economy? Are you aware of your choices and how that might be sending a mixed signal to an administration that pays very close attention to signal and to media? Are you aware? And if you're not, I'd be happy to tell you how I feel about it, hear how you feel about it, and have a very honest, open, and loving relationship. Because we're Canadians. That's what we do. So please do that. Fight for democracy itself by talking to each other.
Thank you. And that is our time. So we're going to do some thank yous just before we pull the plug here today. First of all, first and foremost, Tina, can I turn my back on your camera for a second here? I do want to thank all of you for coming in on a Sunday afternoon to participate in this program. There are a million other things you could be doing today. The fact that you're here, really give yourselves a pat on the back for civic engagement and being prepared to discuss a controversial issue on television, no less. So kudos to you. Give yourselves a hand. There we go. I want to thank our crew at TVO, Mark Ford, Director Sheldon Osman for the role they played in pulling all of this together, to Hillary Clark, who's the backbone of this series, TVO Today Live. Well done, Hills. To the folks here at the Upper Canada Mall who are watching us, not only seated here, but also around the perimeter here, and also up in the balcony up there. You folks have been really great to stick around and watch us do all this. Christine Seidman, I want to thank you and your whole team for all of the help you've given us. It wouldn't have happened without you. And as always, Red Wilson, I know you're watching, and I want to thank you for your wonderful support for what we've been trying to do here on TVO with this series. Democratic engagement, and it all starts with you. So Red, thanks to you and your Wilson Foundation for your support. Everybody who's here today gets in for free, and that's because of you. For more from this, a hand for Red Wilson, why not? We want to say that for more from this series, you can go to these websites, tvo.org/TVO Today Live, or of course, we're on the YouTube machine as well, youtube.com/@TVO Today. And finally, and most importantly, I want to thank Stephen Fine over here, Peter Shurman over here, Laura Babcock right here for their great contributions to our program today. Thanks you three very much. I'm Steve Paikin. Thanks so much for joining us from Newmarket, Ontario. We'll see you next time.
TVO Today Live is made possible by the generous support of the Wilson Foundation.